Hi, good morning. We've got two more stories for you this morning from the Pyweasel series that we've been reading for the last few weeks. This is the third week. Yeah, so I've got two little short stories for you. The first one hasn't actually got a title. It's called Has it? Oh, I never saw that.
Sorry.
Pyweasel and Plates of Meat. Now, shall I explain plates of meat, do you think? Shall I explain it?
Yeah, go on, explain.
Right, plates of meat is, some of you probably know, it's Cockney rhyming slang for feet. Can't lift my feet up.
Try again.
No, too old for all that.
One of these.
Yeah. Plates of meat. Feet. And it's about someone having that name. Plates of meat.
Who is it that has that name?
It's a horse.
Hang on a minute. I might have him down here. Let's have a look.
That's like something of plates of meat. I think plates of meat's a bit bigger than that. Plates of meat.
I think he is bigger. You're going to sit down and watch, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Horse. Right then, let's go. I feel like a newsreader. One day, Pyweasel got a letter from an old friend who lived in the East End of London. He asked Pyweasel if he knew of a place where a rescued horse could be given a home. Pyweasel scratched his head till his hair stood on end, and he thought and he thought and he thought. It wasn't easy to find homes for horses. He didn't have a computer, so he couldn't search Google to see if he could find one. He thought of all the people that lived in his village and wondered if they had room for a horse, maybe. I've lost my place. Thank you. Most houses just had small gardens, except for the big manor house. They had huge gardens. The people that lived there sometimes rode their horses up the village street. But they were very posh horses, not rescued ones. There was a farm, but the farmer had a tractor. He didn't really use horses. In his mind, Pyweasel could see a rescued horse, maybe hungry and a little bit thin with skinny legs and wispy hair. He sighed. It was no good looking anywhere else. He would have to give the horse a home himself. He could have the stall in the barn, where Pyweasel kept some of his tools and a straw bale. So he wrote back to his friend and made his friend very happy. "I'll bring him down very early on Monday morning," he said. "I'll leave everything he needs. Don't worry, you'll both be fine." So very early on Monday morning, Pyweasel heard the horse box pull up outside his cottage. He heard the clip of the horse's shoes on the pavement as he pulled on his trousers and his shirt to go outside. "All right, Pyweasel, meat. That's what we call him. Plates of meat because of his feet." Pyweasel looked at his feet. They were huge. This was not a skinny rescue horse. This was the biggest horse that Pyweasel had ever seen. He looked up at the horse's head and all the way down to his feet, which were as big as dinner plates. Pyweasel knew straight away that they were going to be the best of friends. He waved goodbye to his friend and Meat began to eat the grass. There was a bale of hay and a bag of oats and a bag of carrots for him too. He wouldn't go hungry. That night, Meat slept in the barn, and Pyweasel dreamed about making a cart pulled by Meat to make take the children on trips around the village. Crash! Pyweasel woke with a start, then ran to the barn to see what had happened. Meat was awake and standing up, but the wooden side of the stall was in pieces on the floor. Pyweasel picked up all the pieces, being careful not to get a splinter, and he put it all outside. I'll deal with that in the morning, he thought. Back to bed and back to dreams. Then, crash! Once again, Pyweasel went out of the barn, and there was the other side of the stall in pieces on the floor. Now that didn't happen all by itself, said Pyweasel out loud. He sat down on the hay bale, not the straw bale, because the stalks used to get stuck in his bum. And he tried to work out what was happening. He looked at Meat. Meat's eyes closed, and then his head went slightly to one side. So did his shoulders, and so did his rump. Whoa! Shouted Pyweasel, and jumped up to grab Meat's bridle. I see what's happening. These feet are just too big. You can't lay down comfortable like. Can you, old thing? Meat put his head up and down. You need something strong to lean on, don't you? Don't worry, I've got plenty of timber, and we can use, and you'll be comfy again. As soon as it was light, Pyweasel was busy with his hammer and nails and saw. He built 2 strong walls and padded them with an old eiderdown, so Meat could go to sleep leaning on one of them. Pyweasel was looking forward to the day when he could show everyone in the village his new friend, Meat. He would say, "When you meet my mate, Meat, beware of your feet." And that is the end of Pyweasel and Plates of Meat. And the next one...
I think you like that. Do you like that? Cool. Do you have a next story?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And this one is called... Do you want me to hold it while you sign? I've got to read it. Dillis gets better almost.
So, Dillis.
Do you want to explain Dillis?
Girl's name. Yes, so that's
D-I-L-Y-S.
Dillis. Now, this story is about Dillis the duck. Hang on a sec. Here we go. Got a duck.
Yeah.
I think there's something I might show you at the end as well. Okay.
It was early in the morning. Pyweasel swallowed the last of his first cup of tea, let himself out of the back door. It was time to check on all his family that lived in the lean-to, the barn and the pond. Doors were undone, fresh water and a few treats were given, names called and heads patted. Pyweasel was content. All his family was safe and the sun was shining. He walked around the front of the post box at the front gate. There were no letters, but it was early yet for the postman. He looked up the path to the front door and saw something that wasn't there last night. It's a tatty old box. Was there anything inside? Puzzled, he opened the box and found a very sad looking duck. Pyweasel realised it was a lady because he knew lots about things about animals and birds. It was a mallard. She had mostly brown feathers with a little bit of blue And then he realised what made her look sad. She had broken her wing. Oh dear. Pyweasel was sad too, but made up his mind to make sure she got better. As he looked at this tatty broken duck, it made him think of little girl's dolly that he had found by the garden fence. The little girl came looking for her and found her sitting on top of the fence post. She told Pyweasel the doll's name was called Dillis. So that is what Pyweasel called the duck, Dillis. He did all the things that would help the duck get better. He looked things up in his bird books and magazines to make sure he was doing it right. It's time for Dillis to meet the other ducks on the pond and go for a swim, said Pyweasel. He was very pleased. Dillis was much better. He carried Dillis to the pond where some ducks were doing what ducks do and placed Dillis on the water's edge. She put in her beak and grabbed at a few insects and a piece of pondweed that floated her way. Pyweasel never fed them bread because he knew it was bad for them. Dillis took a step into the water and ruffled her feathers as if she would settle down to swim across the pond. She turned around and walked back to Pyweasel's feet and sat down. Pyweasel picked her up, placed her in the water. She turned around and walked out and sat down at the edge. Pyweasel scratched his head, really puzzled. Dillis was happy to be at the edge of the water, but she wouldn't go right in and swim like the others did. Pyweasel remembered going to the beach when he was younger. He didn't like being wet all over, but he was happy to paddle at the edges. Maybe Dillis was the same. He decided what to do. To his weekly shopping list, he would add baby's paddling pool and put some water in it for Dillis so she could get her feet wet. Maybe if he pushed it out to the middle of the pool, she would be able to feed from the weeds on the surface like the other ducks did. As Pyweasel planned, he knew that all animals, as well as people, needed to stay safe.
Cool.
I hope you enjoyed that. You liked that one. Yeah. Do you want to explain about Dillis?
Oh, yes. So, I was very excited when I read this story, and that's because my doll is called Dillis. And I've had her since I was a tiny, tiny, tiny little girl. Look, here she is.
And she got lost, didn't she?
Yeah.
She got lost once before.
She went missing once a long time ago. And I used to carry her everywhere with me under my arm. And I found a photograph to prove it. Have a look at this. There she is. So I was the girl who lost Dillis a long time ago, but she was found. And after my parents searched and searched all over the neighbourhood, all the houses, I think they put up posters and they asked people, eventually she was found under my bed. Good story. But she's a bit special. So yeah, I particularly love that story. Anyway, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week for more of How You Signing Pyweasel. Pyweasel. Pyweasel.
Bye.
Bye.